Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today and welcome to the webinar on tips for writing a VSA program site contract proposal 2022-2023. I'm Roberto Samayoa of the Office of Accessibility and VSA at the Kennedy Center. I'm today's moderator along with my colleague, Sarah Berzio. Before we get started, I'd like to take a brief moment to introduce you to the Zoom control panel. You can view live captioning of this webinar by clicking on the closed caption live transcript button on the control panel on the bottom of your window. The ASL interpreter will be spotlighted throughout the presentation. Broadcast messages from the host will appear in the chat box, which can be found on your control panel. If you need to exit the webinar before the presentation is over, click on the red Leave button in the right corner of the control panel. A recording of the webinar will be available afterwards, so you can catch up on any part you miss. If you are having trouble connecting to the computer audio, try clicking on the audio settings. You may also connect to the audio through your telephone. If you use your telephone, please make sure that you mute your computer speakers. You could submit questions to the host and panelists using the Q&A button. If you prefer to speak your question rather than typing it, please click on the right-hand shaped raise hand icon. Roberto or Sarah will unmute your microphone at the appropriate time. Clicking on the Views option menu at the top of your screen allows you to zoom the window in or out.
Are you able to see my screen okay? Let's see if I can get my... All right. Thank you, Roberto. I'm Stephanie Litvak, Manager of VSA Programs at the Office of Accessibility and VSA at the Kennedy Center. This webinar will cover certain aspects of how to prepare a VSA program contract proposal, and I will answer questions related to the proposal form. This webinar will not cover. Please note that I will not be answering program-specific content questions in this webinar. Questions that are very specific to the proposal of only your organization. I'm happy to answer these types of questions if you call me at 202-416-8847 or email me at sslitvak@kennedy-center.org. Q&A at the end. Please feel free to type your questions into the Q&A box at any time during the presentation. I'll be happy to answer your questions during the designated time at the end of my presentation. The RFPs. As you know, the Kennedy Center recently released 9 different requests for contract proposals, or RFPs, to become a VSA program site and deliver a VSA program for the 2022-2023 fiscal year. These are VSA Arts Connect All Professional Development Program, VSA Arts Connect All Workshop Residency Program, VSA Media Arts Discovery Program, VSA Theater Discovery Program, VSA Visual Arts Discovery Program, VSA Museum Access for Kids Program, VSA Performing Arts Access for Kids Program, Rosemary Kennedy Initiative, and VSA EZ Program. How many proposals? A non-commercial entity, such as a nonprofit organization, a school, or city government, may submit proposals to a maximum of 2 different RFPs for which it is eligible. An organization may only submit 1 proposal per RFP. Please note that individuals are not eligible to apply for a VSA program site contract. How many contracts? The Kennedy Center will issue a contract offer for no more than 1 proposal per eligible organization. So if you're selected, you would not be able to receive a contract offer for more than 1 of the proposals that you may have submitted. Confused by dates. I completely understand and can explain. The Kennedy Center is in another, and its 3rd, unusual contract cycle due to the pandemic. So the proposal submission due date and the notification date don't actually line up nicely with the contract period dates. So you're correct in reading in the RFPs that says submission deadline is November 30th, 2022. And the notification date is January 11, 2023. You are also correct in reading that the contract term dates are October 3, 2022 through August 31st, 2023. The contract can be retroactive. What this means is that you have the possibility for including work that was completed or is currently underway in your proposal if it meets the VSA program goals as stated in the RFP. Ideally, if you implement the activities in October through January that are similar to those you are proposing for February through August, you could choose to include these earlier activities in your proposal. Doing this might assist you in meeting or exceeding the participant numbers required by the program. New VSA programs this year. There are 3 new programs this year that we think you'll like because they're more comprehensive of the arts discipline and broaden the types of arts learning that can take place. The first is the VSA Media Arts Discovery Program. Media arts includes moving images, digital images, photography, sound, interactive arts, and virtual arts. If you liked the old VSA Tilt digital storytelling program, try this program. The second is the VSA Theater Arts Discovery Program. This program encompasses both theater craft and drama process. If you liked the old VSA Playwright Discovery Program, you can still do script writing in this program. The last new program is VSA Visual Arts Discovery Program. There's no longer the requirement to use activities from the VSA Visual Arts Teacher Resource Guides. However, if you liked the old Children's Visual Arts Discovery Program, you're welcome to use the activities you've grown to love. So once again, if you're interested in using the VSA Visual Arts Teacher Resource Guides, there are lots of activities in the various guides. You can still find them online at www.kennedyscenter.org/education/VSA. No minimums. If you have a small number of participants or you have a short event, then the VSA EZ program might be perfect for you. There's no required number of participants and there's no required number of hours of instruction to meet. This contract is between $1,000 and $6,000 for an event, a workshop, or a series of sessions. RFPs for venues only. 2 of the VSA programs are for venues only. For the VSA Museum Access for Kids program, you must be a nonprofit museum. And for the VSA Performing Arts Access for Kids program, you must be a nonprofit brick and mortar performing arts venue. Resident companies are not eligible to apply for this program. Professional venue and show. Please keep in mind that for the VSA Performing Arts Access for Kids program, you must be a professional venue. The shows must take place at your venue, and the shows must be professional. It is not appropriate for the performance to take place at a school or to have students performing for students in this program. RKI Partnerships. The VSA Rosemary Kennedy Initiative is for arts organizations to provide transition opportunities for youth with disabilities. A key element to making this program work is for the arts organization to have strong partnerships with schools, school districts, or disability service organizations. If you are a disability service organization, work with an arts organization to have them submit a proposal. Read the RFPs carefully. I urge you to read every section of the RFP you're interested in. All of the RFPs have been updated slightly from last year, so please read the entire RFP, even the really boring legal parts. Read the RFPs carefully, especially the core program components on page 2, the logo and professional learning requirements on page 3, and the eligibility requirements on page 4, and the unallowable cost list on page 6. These are similar, but are not the same for every RFP. Special education credentials. There is a special education credentials eligibility requirement for all VSA programs. What this means is that all organizations must have a staff person, a consultant, or an advisor with special education credentials, substantively involved in the development or the delivery of the program. This person should assist you in ensuring that your content and program delivery are appropriate for teaching students with disabilities. Make sure that you list the credentials such as, but not limited to, educational degrees or school district special education certificates with the person's biography in your proposal. Contracts, not grants. These RFPs are for contracts, not grants. And I will become a broken record to be able to stress this. The Kennedy Center is seeking contractors to deliver VSA programs, to become VSA program sites. We want our VSA programs to impact as many of our constituents as possible. Our constituents are students with disabilities, pre-kindergarten through grade 12. For VSA Arts Connect All professional development programs, we're reaching students with disabilities through their educators. We're looking for good contractors to help us to do this by using their expertise to achieve our program goals around the country. Contracts, not grants. Yes, again, there'll be a couple of these slides. This is a contract for hire process rather than the grant process that many nonprofit organizations are used to. It's a comprehensive process and it's a competitive process. We're looking to hire organizations that have the best qualifications and are cost effective. It is similar to the process you might use to hire teaching artists or curriculum developers. Contracts, not grants. Please keep in mind that these are contracts to do work for the Kennedy Center. These are not grants to organizations to support the organization's programs. This is a subtle but very important difference and should shape the framing of your proposal. So once again, these are not grants to organizations to support the organization's programs. These are contracts to do work for the Kennedy Center. You are the expert. You need to think of the contract as bringing your expertise to deliver the Kennedy Center's VSA programs described in the RFP to our constituency of students with disabilities in your community. Just as you would receive a price estimate from a teaching artist before you hire them, the proposal you submit is your estimate to the Kennedy Center of why you should become a VSA program site and why you will do and what you will do as a VSA program site. Tell us about your expertise, describe the services you can provide, and explain how these will meet the VSA program goals. Explain how you'll deliver the VSA program and estimate how much it will cost you to do this work for the Kennedy Center. Use your existing program structures. Existing program structures. In your work as a VSA program site, you may use existing program structures or frameworks that have proven to be successful. You may also choose to combine the contract fee with existing funding sources to better achieve VSA program goals and expand your services for the Kennedy Center and your stakeholders. For example, if the fictional organization Kids Awesome Arts applies to be a VSA program site, they might say in their proposal, Kids Awesome Arts will provide VSA Arts Connect All workshop residency program services to the Kennedy Center through the framework of our Kids Create program. Do not use language that's grant-like, similar to the contract will support or this contract will fund. Sufficient information. In your proposal, you will want to provide us with sufficient information to evaluate your proposal in both the narrative and the contract fee justification. We use all of the information you give us to evaluate the effectiveness of the proposed work in meeting the VSA program goals. We ask that you be particular about the drafting of your proposal. Your text and presentation should be concise, clear, and error-free. Focus on telling us about the program goals and objectives you will achieve in your community. Wise narrative use. Use the narrative spaces in the proposal form wisely. Make your proposal as strong as possible by focusing your efforts on the narrative sections where you describe your services. Have a strong summary description. Tell us how you will deliver the VSA program goals and objectives, strategies, and learning objectives. Since this is a contract proposal instead of a grant application, you don't have to waste space on justifying the need for the program. We know there's a need for the VSA programs, Carefully review your proposal for errors before submitting. More wise narrative use. Don't assume that we have prior knowledge of your organization or its work. Even if we have worked with you before, take the time to describe your structures, your frameworks, your strategies, and methodologies where asked. This is not the time to rely on us being familiar with an existing program name. For example, don't simply say something like, we will use the Kids Awesome Arts Movement method developed over the past 10 years. Go on to explain what the method actually includes. Tell us what the program participants will learn and how they will be taught. Even more wise narrative use. This is important. Remember to describe very specifically how you will serve students with disabilities. Describe how your service specifically addresses the learning needs of students with disabilities, especially if you're working in an inclusive environment. Make it clear that you have thoughtfully and thoroughly developed these strategies, frameworks, and/or methodologies with students with disabilities in mind. Tell us if you will address IEP goals. Tell us what accommodation you will be prepared to provide. Estimating participant numbers. When estimating the number of participants, both with and without disabilities, estimate carefully. Using past experience, you should be able to make a reasonable estimate of the number of participants. You can use school demographics to help determine the number of students with disabilities typically attending. If schools are helping you, clarify with them if the number of participants they're providing you is for the entire school or only the number of classrooms you will work with. Don't inflate the number of participants. Estimate as best you can your number of participants. Make sure the estimate is one that you can commit to. If you're awarded a contract to be a VSA program site, you'll be required to meet this number of participants. If you go significantly below the agreed upon participant numbers, the contract will be considered incomplete and your contract fee will be reduced accordingly. For those working in inclusive settings, remember that the VSA programs are about serving students with disabilities. We prefer the number of students without disabilities does not exceed the number of students with disabilities served. We would never want to see more than double the number of students with disabilities unless it's clear in your budget that other monies are facilitating the participation of students without disabilities. Transparent fee justification. Transparency is key in the contract fee justification or budget. Create a budget that provides us with sufficient transparency into the calculation of the contract fee. Follow the line items given and provide adequate calculations and narrative for us to understand how the proposed contract fee ties to the services you will provide to accomplish VSA program goals and serve students with disabilities. Although transparency in the fee calculation is important, be conscientious of what information you provide to us to evaluate your proposal. Don't disclose proprietary information or information that you don't want us to use in our evaluation process. Budget format. We have a preferred budget format with specified expense categories built into the proposal form. The form allows for flexibility in the level of detail. We expect to see calculations for each line item and the narrative when an explanation is needed. The line items should add up to the proposed contract fee. And this is the same amount that you will enter in question 5 of the proposal form. You are not required to outline other sources of funding in your proposal. However, we have provided a budget column for this information if you choose to include it. For those organizations serving students with disabilities in inclusive settings, we highly recommend that you use the other amount column to show us how you will pay for the participation of students without disabilities. You may also use the other amount column to show that you're paying for unallowable costs that might be mentioned in the show calculation column with non-contract monies. Show calculations. It's important for us to see your calculations. Tell us how you arrived at a particular line item amount. Never simply indicate a percentage of an expense without explanation. Tell us how you arrived at assigning that particular percentage. Was it based on the number of hours? Was it based on the number of students with disabilities being served? Except for budgets for professional development programs, which usually serve students with disabilities indirectly, all other program budgets should clearly show that the contract fee is enabling the participation of students with disabilities. Especially if you're working in an inclusive setting, we want to make sure that the contract fee pays you to serve students with disabilities. In an inclusive situation, it may be useful for you to use the other amount column to clearly separate contract money for students with disabilities and other monies for students without disabilities, particularly if you're serving a high number of students without disabilities. Avoid percentages. Do not list a percentage only in the calculation box. Show us how you determined that percentage. In my example budget table, I have 3 ways of expressing the same expense. In the first line, the organization has proposed that 50% of the teaching artist fee costs $2,000. We don't know why the full teaching artist fee is $4,000, and we don't know why the contract fee is for 50% of this total. The second line of the table improves the entry by showing the calculation for the total teaching artist fee. One teaching artist will work for 5 hours for 2 residencies at a rate of $400 per hour. The budget also indicates that 50% of this cost was selected for the contract fee because 50% of the students being served are students with disabilities. In the third line of the table, the calculation shown for the cost of teaching artists is the same, but the reason for 50% of the expense being part of the contract is that the organization can bring $2,000 of other monies to deliver the VSA program, and it only requires an additional $2,000 of contract fee to include students with disabilities in the residency. Unallowable costs. Please make sure that you read the list of unallowable costs on page 3, number 8 of the RFPs. These are food and beverages, production costs for performances or exhibits, equipment and durable education supplies and art supplies that are durable, space rental of any kind, culminating activities. While we understand that culminating performances or exhibits are important to students, we choose for the emphasis of the contract to be on the learning process in the classroom. How to avoid cost removal. A very common mistake applicants make is not listing their supplies and materials. This is the durable, the consumable art supplies and materials. Please list your supplies and materials so that we can confirm that these are indeed allowable expenses. In the budget calculation box, along with the calculation, list the types of consumable supplies and the materials you will use in your VSA program. Use general categories such as paint, clay, construction paper. You do not need to indicate the quantity or the unit cost of each item. So you don't need to go into huge detail. Definitely keep it general categories, and you don't need to indicate like how many paint brushes or what the cost of those paint brushes would be. You don't need to do that. How to avoid cost removal, especially when a performing artist will lead a residency or workshop. List their role in the budget as teaching artist or facilitator. This will prevent confusion for the Kennedy Center with the role of performer, which is an unallowable production cost. So make sure that if you're having performers leading any residencies or workshops, that they are listed as teaching artist and workshop leader, something like that, or facilitator, so that we're not confusing it with their role as being a performer on a stage, which is an unallowable production cost. In your budget, also make sure you distinguish between staff costs for program delivery and administrative overhead. You probably have a staff person whose time falls into both categories. Maybe this is your executive director. Split the time up by role, not job title. Put the emphasis on program delivery. Administrative overhead is not to exceed 10% of the contract subtotal. Per capita costs. When you are building your budgets, keep in mind your per capita cost for students with disabilities, or in the case of professional development, the per educator cost. This is how we look at your budget. For all programs except the VSA Arts Connect All Professional Development Program, which focuses on educators, we are first and foremost interested in serving students with disabilities. Even in inclusive settings, the VSA program is all about the students with disabilities. And remember that we are looking for proposals that are cost-effective as well as strongly programmatic. Getting bang for the buck. It's okay to maximize a contract by leveraging program partnerships and funding sources. It's a good thing if you are able to expand your network, expand the reach, and expand the objectives of the proposed services by securing partners or funders. This is a way that you can have a larger capacity than you originally thought, serve more students with disabilities, and it makes you more competitive. Lastly, I'd like to mention a little about branding. It's all about the logo. We want the services under contract that are meeting VSA program goals to be associated with the Access VSA brand. All program site contractors are required to use a contract logo or acknowledgement line to brand the services being delivered as VSA programs. The acknowledgement line is Kennedy Center VSA Program Site 2022-2023. Logo and logo. We don't expect you to stop using your own logo or that of your funders, but to use the contract logo in addition to these when referring to VSA program activities. Those organizations who are selected for a contract will receive guidance on mandatory logo and acknowledgement line use to identify their work under contract. And finally, any questions? So the rest of our time I want to spend in being able to answer your questions. And once again, these are questions about the proposal form or something that's a little bit more general and not specific to things that are only about your organization. And those, please call me or email me about that. I'm going to stop sharing for the moment. And let's get started.
Stephanie, this is Sarah, and we have a question in the chat from
Okay.
someone. Will you be sharing the slide deck and video with participants after the webinar?
I sure am. There's going to be a file. That was my next slide, actually. There's going to be a follow-up email that'll come out that I will send out that will have the link to the recording of this session and the transcript.
We also have two questions in the Q&A. I'm happy to read them, or if you would.
Yeah, let me get over there.
Okay.
Okay. I see Easy Grant. Would one-time creative interactive workshops for families with children with disabilities be eligible? Yes, they can be, and it depends a little bit on how you're doing the roundup for them, how you are going to know that you're serving a certain number of children with disabilities. So you would want to have some kind of registration that would allow you to know. And it's fine if families are included, other siblings, parents, but it needs to be something that you have some control over, knowing that students with disabilities are being served. Let's see, my degree is for early childhood SPED, so serving students 0 to 8 years. Does that mean we could only include students on IEPs within that age range for the contract, or not necessarily? So what I'm taking this to assume is that you are serving children in an inclusive setting. So that's okay. You can serve, the VSA programs can take place in inclusive settings. But you, once again, you also need to make sure that you know how many students with disabilities that you're likely to get, so that you are meeting the requirements of the particular program that you're applying for, and that you're not only serving students without disabilities. Is there any flexibility, for instance, where students are not allowed to leave their premises to get to a professional venue? Yes, we'd need to know, I would need to understand, and we would need to understand a little bit more if you're serving students that aren't able to come to your venue. I would like to better understand what the particular situation is. Certainly you can do things virtually, as has been taking place during COVID. I know that there are areas that may still have restrictions, or there may be students that are not able to go to venues for different reasons. So, but definitely give me a call or shoot me an email. I'd like to give you a better answer than what I'm doing right now. Regarding the Arts Connect All workshop residency program, must programs always take place in a school? What about programs where students are leaving their school and engaging in a program in a community setting? Yes, any of the programs can, except for where they need to take place in a specific venue for the MAC and the museum access and the performing arts access, you may do your programs in community settings. Doesn't need to be in a school. It doesn't need to, you can mix and match. So you could have some residencies or workshops at a school and others at a community program. Look broadly in your community. Do you want us to describe the type of disability we serve? For example, we work with students who are DHH as well as have autism. Do we have to describe the different programming? Would we need different special ed consultants for different disabilities? You should mention if you're serving a very specific population and it affects the type of programming that you're proposing, you may want to tell us why you're doing something a certain way, and you may want to tell us about a specific disability that you're of the students that you're serving. You don't necessarily need different special education consultants for different disabilities. I leave that to your judgment on what you actually need as far as meeting the credentialed, credential requirement. I think you can choose to find the people that are going to be the right fit for the particular work that you're proposing. So that if it's somebody that you need more assistance in making sure that what you're doing is for students with autism, then you should look for somebody that has that experience and that type of work as part of their credential. The professional, let's see, you can you describe the professional learning conferences requirements? Yes, so depending on which RFP you're answering to, there is a requirement to attend the Leadership Exchange in Arts and Disability, or the ED at LEAD, the Education at Leadership Exchange in Arts and Disability Conference. So most of them are to attend the one-day Edit Lead, the Museum Access and the Performing Arts Access for Kids programs should attend the LEAD conference. That Edit Lead is one day, the LEAD conference is 3 days, and you can send a staff person, a teaching artist, someone who is an educator attached to your program. So ideally, we would like the information that you acquire by attending this professional learning, that it goes back to your organization in some way, or it benefits you in some way. But we understand that there are many other people that you work with than just your staff that could benefit from attending. Please let me know if you had more questions about that. The one thing that I would like to add about the professional learning is you'll notice in the RFPs that the contractor is responsible for paying all of the expenses for attending the requirement. But you'll notice in the budget form that there's a line item to include these types of expenses in your contract fee estimate, so that when it says that you're required to pay these travel expenses, you're the one that's responsible for paying the registration fee and making your hotel reservation and paying the hotel and doing all that. The Kennedy Center won't do it on your behalf, but you can use some of your contract fee towards paying those expenses.
Stephanie, we have another offline question.
Sure.
From an anonymous person, can we include transportation expenses for going to schools in our budget?
Yes, you can. You can put in expenses that are for, say, teaching artists or your staff to get to and from your offices or home to the schools. If you are a performing arts venue and you're looking at the performing arts access for kids, you can include such transportation as buses to get kids from schools to your venue, things like that.
And one other question. In past years, people have had an alternative option to attend Edit, Lead, or Lead conference. I didn't see that this year. Will there be an alternative option?
No, there won't be alternative options. The requirement is to attend in person. So do plan on spending that travel money and putting it in your budget and picking someone that would be able to travel to Boston. That's where we're going to be in the end of August. All right. Well, let me share my screen again briefly. So as we mentioned, there will be a follow-up email, and it will include the link to the recording of today's presentation and the transcript. See if I can advance this. And I'd like to, if there are no further questions, like to say thank you for your attention today. I hope that my presentation answered some of your questions. And if you have more questions once you get into digging into your proposal writing, please call me at 202-416-8847 or send me an email at sslitvak, that's SSLITVAK at kennedy-center.org. And that's my presentation for today. All right, Roberto.
Stephanie, we have an additional question here. I don't know.
Oh, sure. I'm glad to answer the last one.
I'll just read it out. Are these expenses reimbursable, or do you give the award all at once?
No, we're not doing reimbursements. How the payment works is this is the payment of the contract fee. That it is paid in two parts. The first part, certain percentage will be paid once you are selected, you agree to you receive a contract offer, you agree to the contract and sign the contract. So once the contract is signed by the Kennedy Center, then that triggers the first contract fee payment. The second and final contract fee payment is paid when you submit your final report and the report is approved by the Kennedy Center. So, and then if you're talking about reimbursable things related to the travel that we talked about, no, we are not reimbursing travel or anything. We don't want to receive receipts. Nothing like that. It needs to come out of your contract fee payment that's made to you, or you're advancing your staff or whomever is traveling and you're dealing with reimbursements on your end. It's not the Kennedy Center that's doing any reimbursements. No, we do. We just received another question that says, do you want to see any work samples, videos, photos? No, we do not want to receive those. If they're sent, they probably will not be looked at. Please keep what you're asked for in the proposal is all we want to receive. Great questions, everyone. There is another question. There is no longer a midterm report for the Arts Connect All workshop residency. No, I'm not doing a formal midpoint report this coming year. I'm going to be sending you emails at the midpoint asking you some of those questions, but there isn't a formal report form. I still need to see how things are going, you know, help people if they're having some issues. You know, if we do some brainstorming, maybe we can solve some of those. And then if there are any great quotations, things like that, I always like to be able to pass those along to my colleagues at the Kennedy Center, especially the development department. And I'll solicit those in a different way this time. All right, thank you for that question. All right.
Okay, thank you everyone for joining us today. For future webinars, please visit accessvsa.org. That's ACCESSVSA.org. Thank you very much.
Bye.